Then we go FXT, and then I'm going to go on to the disadd, and then on to case.
T substantial affects T, disadd case.
Correct. Actually, and I will take before, like, I think you probably have a float on the, I guess, K. I'll take the condo before I get to the disadd. All set? Yep. Okay. First, all right, so on T substantial, first extend our definition of indefinite detention legislation must include non-U.S. citizens, non-citizens, composed mostly inmate population in Guantanamo Bay and other U.S. detention facilities. Again, the fact that they're plan deals primarily with deals primarily with citizens and the perception of citizens, and the act does not meet the definition because the change only affects U.S. citizens. And the evidence says the Obama administration has actually detained a U.S. citizen, but the perception is bad. That means the plan doesn't substantially increase the restriction because in the status quo currently there's no detention of U.S. citizens. Plus, also their answers on the T substantial that like yes we meet it is enough. And kind of interpretation that a large extent that they do this, that's all based on the idea. It still doesn't answer the fact that there's no citizens detained in the SQO, that they're not ultimately changing that. So they just talk about foreign citizens there. And then, so that's why they're not substantial. And then that affects and comes into the T flow where you're talking about the fact that because the app focuses on the public perception against sovereignty, they don't constitute a restriction of the presidential war powers, and they have to be perceived in a certain way in order to effectively restrict presidential war powers. They make this argument that no, that card is just like a preempt another argument card, but actually no, because if you think about it, their cards like U.S. example, they're claiming to solve for terrorism based upon the Muslim American community's cooperation. Their cards about human rights leadership being modeled for public perception all rely on the fact of the public perception, right? And like how other countries perceive the United States and how the U.S. public perceives the United States. It's not fundamentally about whether or not the people actually get released. So the either the app is affects T and can't act substantiality, or the app is making an attempt to fiat public opinion. Fiat abuse is a voter issue because it enables the app to guarantee its own advantages. They can guarantee and fiat public opinion. So yes, public opinion goes this way to solve for our advantages. Additionally, the neg ground is key to testing and challenging the policy implementation mechanism. We can't do that if they're just fiating public opinion as one of their access points. Okay, on to the conditionality. First of all, they say not reciprocal again. We're not debating in multiple worlds here. And additionally, we say one advocacy or counter-interpretation is that the negative gets one conditional K out. This isn't too much for them because it's just one position of advocacy. Additionally, they say it hurts educational depths. Again, it's good because it allows for multiple lenses, competing advocacies to be tested in the debate space and actually debate the merits of them in time skew. In the real world, they have perms to check the time skew, and they have the prep advantage. They're able to prepare for alternate critiques and advocacy positions, which they clearly have evidence for. And on the voters and education, they have impacted their fairness and education claims. Additionally, constitutional debate is good because it's more real world again. They destroy cost-benefit analysis if they limit the neg to like no positions of advocacy or even like one or two positions of advocacy, and they limit the insulates the applicant competitive options. It's key to tactical choice because it forces the 2AC to recognize and respond to what's strategic, which is a good skill for advocacy. Advocacy instruction forces the app to defend their position from all sides. Inability to simultaneously defend against a variety of proposals produces bad apps. You have to air neg on this because 2AR persuasion, no uniqueness for protection, just as they get the first and last speeches. The 2NR has to answer. Apps pick the focus of the debate, topic is huge, and the 2NR has to answer the theory and substance, and don't vote on the theory. It causes substance crowd out and incentivizes like cheap shot theory arguments in this case to bail out of positions they can't answer. Okay, on to the disadd. Even if the Taliban don't get control of the whole country at the negotiations, they will rapidly seize control of what they don't get by force after negotiations conclude. This is Weinbaum, September 5th. Countries are organized to attack with a believe the Pakistani solution that sees the South and East Taliban, who are then thought to be certain to make a bid for power of the entire country, while Afghan leaders keep pursuing a political outcome. Country security forces are being asked to take greater risks against the insurgency. So let me allow the story on this data. So right now, the United States and the Taliban are about to conduct negotiations. However, the Taliban are unwilling to negotiate. like U.S. withdrawal in Afghanistan and things like that, and their role in the country, because the U.S. still has prisoners detained in Guantanamo Bay. Once they release the prisoners, which the AF is going to do, because they said they released a whole lot of prisoners except for a few, and don't let them come up and just specify, oh, we don't release those prisoners to spike out of the office because they somehow knew about the DISAF. And then they, once they get rid of these prisoners, the Taliban negotiates with the United States, which is ultimately bad because the United States is going to concede at least enough political power in Afghanistan for the Taliban to take over. And what the Weinbaum card talks about is how even if they don't get control of the whole country, the negotiations, they can seize control of some of it. And ultimately, the Taliban is a regime of individuals who have perspective on human rights that is fundamentally bad, and that's the MENA evidence where she talks about how not only are they're fundamentally dehumanizing to women, there's different other castes they submit certain people because of their background, ethnic origin within Afghanistan and their status. Which is fundamentally bad. And additionally, their only card they read it says no solution because the Taliban will violate any agreement. This card, if anything, flows our way because the Taliban are probably, like the Weinbaum says, going to start to, if they see the negotiation and the chance to seize power, they're going to do it. The Taliban aren't going to violate an agreement that gives them more power in the country. Additionally, the DISAD is about how we, fundamentally about how we view people and their value, and what they're seeing is they're using people as a tool for security, for ends of security, and not realizing the abuse that actually occurs, and looking at the implications of their policies. Because they're just releasing the prisoners as a tool rather than trying to look at the fundamental abuse and the actual impacts of that on the human rights side of the table. And then on the case. So first of all, on the terrorism, they read this, discussing terrorism causes us to ignore violence that takes place. Yes, there is violence, but what the terrorism DISAD is talking about is that you probably are the root cause of this violence, and you actually create this violence for yourselves. And when you represent terror as being a good-evil dichotomy, that's the Counter 07, which is obviously going to encourage you to intervene in places where you suspect there's terrorism and to cause harms and to kill people. And then so we fundamentally are addressing on this. We're looking. No, the root cause is that your actions are why this takes place, and then we see violence and we characterize it as terrorism. Right? There are people who have legitimate grievances against the United States who seek to attack the United States and undermine its influences, and you characterize them as terrorists. Did you justify doing violence against them? And obviously, it's because they have those grievances that characterize them, not because there's some evil enmity, existing thing that is just out to destroy the United States and all the freedom and stuff like that. Additionally, onto the, terrorism is a fabricated threat used to instill fear in population. The discourse surrounding terror are the root cause of the impacts of the state of 01. Relentless pursuit of terrorism is criminal allows the United States to do what wishes anywhere in the world. Terrorism has become a sort of scream created since the end of the Cold War. Policymakers in Washington propagating depopulation of great insecurity just how the United States wishes to do globally any threat to its interests. Labeled as terrorism now viewed as resistance to globalization, people's movements in resistance against deprivation, against unemployment, against loss of national resources, against all this term terrorism. They magnified global instance proportions. This focus obscures the enormous damage done to the United States with far worse than anything terrorism might do. Those labels like racial profiling, greatest source of terrorism in the U.S. itself. They're used to keep American policies and intimidate people. Right? The choice to invade Afghanistan and Iraq under justifications of terror are an example of this, and how more dehumanization and harms are ultimately caused in the world, in addition to any of actual violence and deaths and that stuff they experience. The discourse surrounding terrorism produces a violent representation that necessitates mass killings in the name of good. This is Mitchell 05. Terrorism is divine and demonic and a single unspeakable imaginable compound. Terrorist is a holy word. Devil terror also is the deliberate coming of semiotics and aesthetics and unimaginable with those of the unspeakable and unnameable horror cannot be named. Terrorists as stage the unimaginable. Their acts produce a world image, symbolic forms of violence, political forms of acts, actual physical violence, strategic forms of violence are not essential to their repertoire. Main weapon of terror is the violent spectacle image of destruction of image. People consume with the imagery, collateral damage, enemies got people. Point of terrorist violence is terrorizing the enemy of the traumatic spectacle. Instead of killing large masses of people, it's sufficient to send them a message of victim of this trying to play of destruction. All right. Furthermore, onto the global warming advantage again. Specifically, our NASA card talks about how there's lots of peer-reviewed studies by NASA and how NASA recently did some satellite imaging that not just only looks at what is the current topic on global warming, but it looks across the literature and it looks at the trends and the methods used to conduct analysis of CO2 and its relationship to global warming, and it indicts those trends as flawed. So if anything, you can't let them have this global warming impact, at least for a long time frame. They haven't articulated a brink of exactly when this is going to happen, and they haven't articulated how people are going to die, how is global warming actually going to kill people, and things like that. Additionally, extend the NIDE. It talks about how soft power is hard to maintain, and on that, I'm just going to go to the last card. Soft power doesn't solve can-do states to change their interests. This is Heinrich, so not. Soft power highly problematic. Even a state is full of admiration for those elements of another society supposedly give rise to soft power. It's not clear why, when divergent interests are concerned, that admiration might lead to the first state to support its own objectives. The other's concept simply implies the state can be powerful, capable of attaining its preferences in international affairs by virtue of its goodness. Again, the idea that you could just say by virtue of this idea being good, we're going to be able to attain this, and the idea that states look at elements of another society that give rise to soft power. That doesn't mean that where there's divergent interest concern, a state's going to adopt it just because they see that it works well in this other society, and that there are other interests at play in states that are fundamentally unchangeable, which doesn't allow them to access their human rights leadership in global warming.
Okay. Okay. Quick question. So, what is the Taliban scenario? How does that actually link to the 1AC?
Sure. So your 1AC releases prisoners.
Yep.
Right now, the United States is wants to negotiate and is about to negotiate with the Taliban. However, the Taliban are refusing to negotiate because we still have some of their prisoners in Guantanamo Bay.
Okay.
And
So
then,
where in the 1AC do we say that we're going to release?
I believe when your partner in Cossacks talked about releasing every single prisoner except for a few people, a few individuals, and the fact that
Right. So those few individuals are the Taliban members.
Okay, and then how do you determine that? Where is the evidence saying
it says in our plan text that we're going to detain those that are involved in ongoing terrorist plots or activity of a terrorist organization or smaller
Well, the point
subgroups
is,
thereof.
I think like a fundamental problem, right, is like you think like, okay, we're going to hold on to those who are engaged in
No,
terrorist
can you
plots,
answer
right?
my
Like,
question?
the people
We
we
say in
identify
our
are
plan
not
text,
terrorists, right?
we
Like,
say
these
in
are
our
just
plan
like,
text.
So
Answer my question.
Yeah, let
It
me
says in my
explain
plan
this. I
text.
will. Okay, so there's a difference between a terrorist and a Taliban, right? A Taliban is a
Really?
political
So Taliban
regime.
is not a terrorist?
They're not. No, it's a political
What?
regime.
So what is a Taliban member?
It's a political regime that
What is
more or
a
less-
Taliban member?
we're trying
It's
to
a political group that seeks power to control parts of Afghanistan, and they have a fundamental view about the legal
And
system
do
and the
they
way
use
society in
terror? Do
Afghanistan
they
should
use
be.
terror to advance their political agenda?
The Taliban in itself is not necessarily a terrorist organization in terms of like an Al Qaeda.
right, like
group
that's a
that seeks
construction
global
that you're
revision.
applying to them, right? Like this is the type of logic
They
But
have
we say that,
political
alright, so
groups.
we don't say specifically terrorists, we say individuals can be detained for providing substantial support only if it is necessary for the completion of a terrorist
Okay,
plot
so like, here,
or the
let's
ongoing
just-
operation.
and
So,
then to
I don't understand how you just have links. I mean, our
So
plan
to get to
specifically
the root of this,
precludes
like these are individuals, right? The United States invaded Afghanistan. Some people who happen to be members of the Taliban.
I don't
fought
want
the
you to
United
talk about the
States.
Iraq war, talk about our plan, how it links to our plan. How does
Right?
it link
These
to
are
the
not. These
fourth
are the
plank
people
in
that
the
your
plan?
plan will release. All right.
Because you're going to release
I don't know
people,
how this
and if you want to release enough people to get that public
Where do we
perception.
say in the 1AC that we're going to release Taliban members? Can you point to it? Because I don't think I remember that part of the 1AC.
Well, you say you're going to release
Where
anyone
does it
who's
point to it? Just point to it.
okay. You say in your plan that you're going to release everyone who's not actively engaged in a terrorist
Where do we
plot.
say that? Where do we
and
say
if-
that?
In the left point.
Left point?
Under
In the plan text? Or
the plan text. So you say
where do we say that?
individuals can be detained for providing substantial
So we could detain
completion of a
people.
terrorist plot,
We
right?
can detain people.
Yes, you can detain people.
So we
but,
can detain Taliban members.
but the idea
Can we
is that
detain
if
Taliban
they've
members?
already been there for 10
In the
years,
world
they're
of the
probably not
affirmative,
involved in
can
a
we
terrorist
detain
plot.
Taliban members?
Yeah, you can, but since
Okay,
they've been
thank
there
you.
for 10
So
years,
where's
they're
the
not
link to
gonna
the
be
this
detained.
ad?
Because the
We can
individuals are not gonna be
detain
detained.
Taliban members in the
No,
world of the affirmative.
the point is
Where
that you
is your
can't
link?
detain the people based on your plan text, right? Like you specify which people are going to be tried in federal court, which is the definition of like, you know, the people that are being kept in Guantanamo Bay that the Taliban wants to negotiate with, right? Like,
No, we're
That's
saying
point
we can
number
detain
4.
Taliban members. This ad doesn't link at all